Well, we're live on location. I got my best buddy, Tommy Scott. So the main thing that we had to do was get all the concrete off. So I don't remember where it ended up, but I took a nut and a jigsaw and I cut out and made a thread chaser. I ran them down all the bolts to get all the concrete knocked off. I really wish I could have, or I would have taken some aluminum foil and just wrapped all the anchor bolts, but I didn't, so we're paying the price now, but we're getting them cleaned up and ready to go. And then the concrete guys did not do a great job of leaving all these things level by the anchor bolts, so I took a grinder and a chisel and kind of tried to make it as flush as possible, and then I took a level and laid it across here and made sure that it wouldn't rock, so that when we go to put the beam on, that it should be able to lay flat. That's the goal. Oh, look at this, my assistant Tommy. This is our nut. So yeah, I just took a jigsaw, put them in a vise, took a jigsaw, cut out those threads. That just helps the concrete fall out. So that's our little thread chaser. So I'm sure you have an extra nut that you can do that with, just to clean everything up. So we are now getting ready to attempt the first beam, laying it into place. All right, here we go. Whew. All right, so we got the first beam up, and I'll tell you what, I am very impressed with how tall a 20-foot building is. You never really know how tall it's going to be until you get a post up, and it seems like it's really high. So we struggled a bit getting the bolts lined up with the holes, but we were able to wiggle it around and get it in, and then we kind of drew it down with the nuts. I'm not a professional, so don't take this as the way to do any of it. It's just my experience of what worked for us. So I'm a YouTube educated person when it comes to steel buildings, but so far so good. This one looks fairly straight, and then we'll get it final straight whenever all the rest of it's up and we can tie it in together. Okay, so we're making some sweet progress. We got 5 of the 6 main beams up, posts, whatever you want to call them, and we got 1 left to do. So by now we have become experts, and I'm just going to share the couple tips that we found out that really make it easier. Number 1 is your anchor bolts. They're not going to end up perfectly straight unless you take good care to do that. Turns out that it's not really that big of a deal, because you can do a slight tweak to them to get them lined up, and that's the best way to do it. So got my trusty Craftsman aluminum jack handle, and I guess it's nice since it's a soft metal, it won't mar up your threads too bad. But if you need to tweak it, jack handle over there and just give it a little bit of a nudge, and you can get your anchor bolts straight so that you can drop your beam right onto it. So after we figure out how to do that, it went a lot quicker. Then the next thing we got going on is we got like a toe strap, and ours happened to have a notch in here that I believe is for the cable bracing, and that's just a solid way to do it so that it will not be able to slip off or anything. So that's the quick little bit of information that I can give you that will hopefully help you out. The battery's on 1 bar. Hopefully it stays alive while we get this into place, so that you can kind of get an idea of what has to happen. Hopefully you saw that drop right on, because we're pros after doing 5 of them. The 6th one was super easy. They didn't all go that easy, but you know, sometimes you actually learn something when you're doing it. So did he grab the level? He grabbed the level, I guess. So that's awesome. That's the last beam. He's up in place. So now we just have to get our girts and our eave struts. Well, here's my crew. They're not very good, but they're cheap. The first truss is up, and the ticket to that was getting it strapped because it wanted to roll. So we got the straps X-braced on it, kind of like, to keep it from rolling. And this is how we have them anchored. So it's an axle strap bolted to one of the anchor bolts to a ratchet strap, and these are good because you can ratchet it a bit, kind of like a come along, and get the beam to roll a bit because it wants to roll on you. But we got them into place. Wasn't that big of a deal. It was nice to have 2 people in each scissor lift to muscle it into place. It's kind of what you needed. So it's looking pretty impressive to me. So it's the eave strut, the peak of that is 20 feet. The peak of the top, I think, is about 22 and an inch or so, because it's 1/12 pitch. So it's almost flat. It's just enough to get the rain to run off, but I didn't want it super peaky because it's already tall enough to get the clearance I wanted, but I didn't want it to be any taller, really. It's somehow your outbuilding is not supposed to be taller than your house. Like, I don't know how they would really enforce that since I'm building the building first. But anyway, that's the way I wanted it, and it's looking great. So we're getting ready to put up the second one, and we'll take some purlins to keep that one from rolling, if that makes sense. So let's just do a time lapse on that, because I think that would be pretty cool. Alrighty, things are going great. We got the last of the purlins going up for the 2 center bays. We're doing 2 at a time on the lifts because for some reason the lifts from the rental place keep getting just aren't very strong. So yeah. Anyway, I guess it has a 500-pound weight rating on that 1930 ES. The 20 footer that I picked up, that's my rusty piece of shit, is 750 pounds rated, so it's a lot stronger. Anyway, things are going great. Still got everything braced up to our anchor bolts. So after we get these purlins up, I believe we're looking at doing some end walls. So that's fun. We're gonna keep on building. Things are going great. All right, guys, here's the status update of the shop build. Thursday, I got the telehandler and the scissor lifts delivered. Then I staged all the primary members so that we could do the beams and the trusses or rafters. So I had that all staged on the pad because that's something that I didn't really need help doing. Friday, Tommy was here. Me and Tommy set up the 6 main beams, and that was pretty much all day for me and Tommy. So we did that, and then we had the eave struts and the girts, and Jesse came in at the end to help finish that. So that's what we did on Friday. Saturday I had a group of 4, so Drew, Brandon, Tommy, and Jesse, and we were able to get the 3 rafters up and all the purlins that go on those ones, along with the eave struts up there. So, or no, those are already up there, right? So we got those up, and then we went to put up all the end posts, and that's where the concrete company screwed me on my anchor bolts. I'm pissed that I paid $1,200 for them to set the anchor bolts, and what happened is on some of them, either their template was off or the bolts walked within the template, because it's just like a piece of maybe like 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch plywood with 4 holes in it. So the bolts going through the holes can spread or whatever. I would think that at least at the concrete level you would have the anchor bolts in the right spots, but that wasn't the case. The options we had was to make a new base plate, which would have been the ultimate best way to do it. Make a new base plate that fit the anchor bolts that were in there. That was not really a practical option with our time schedule and availability of materials and tools. So we were able to use a jigsaw to slot the holes that the anchor bolts go into, enough to get everything set where it needs to go. So that was the trouble on this beam. That one there in the corner, which was really jacked up, and that's the one that they had 2 inches to the wrong side to begin with. So, and then we had one more over there, the one that doesn't have any girts on it. He was also screwed up. So we went through 10 jigsaw blades, but that was the easiest tool that probably anyone has to remedy the situation. So the jigsaw looks small and you wouldn't think it would get the job done, but it really takes care of business. So jigsaw, and then the half moon file to like get everything smooth and round up. So me and Jesse just set this by ourselves because our help all left. I had better things to do on a Sunday.
Didn't need it.
So all we needed was Jesse. He knew what to do. I mean, he looks like he's been working in the steel industry for his whole career.
Just an IT nerd.
Jesse, what's your favorite football team?
Pittsburgh Steelers.
See the connection? A true fan.
Stacking steel like it's my J.O.B.
That's right. Alrighty, so I think we're about set. Jesse, what's with that one bolt that's not nutted up all the way?
What do you mean?
That bolt all the way on the right.
Yeah.
Is he just dangling in there?
We're not done.
Oh, okay.
Are you done?
Right on.
Stuff tightened?
Yeah. All right, we're gonna grab some purlins and throw them in there.
Then we're gonna tighten them.
And then we can get this other end wall done, and hopefully we'll have all the structural members up. And then we'll do more stuff. Anything you'd like to add, Jesse? What is your biggest piece of advice if someone wants to build their own metal building?
Build their own metal building. Keep an eye on your concrete, boys. Setting your pillar anchors.
The anchor bolts are the things that will screw you the most. Make sure those are right. All right, guys, that's a wrap on day 3, so Sunday, and we made awesome progress. We got the one end wall up with the truss up and all the purlins on that side. So we are going to feel good about tomorrow's chances of finishing the same thing on the other side, and that will basically be the whole skeleton. I mean, I imagine we can do that in 3 to 4 hours. It's probably just be me and Jesse. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how it's going. Haven't been too many challenges other than the freaking anchor bolts not being set right. Me and Jesse got the end wall truss in by itself, and it was fairly easy. The center ones, I recommend having 2 people on each side just because they're bigger and harder to get into place, but you at least need 1 person on each side. So Jesse was just up on a scissor lift into one corner, and I was working the crane, and we worked it in by ourselves, right, Jess?
Sure did.
That's right. Is this a warm beer? That's for the
Victory
end of the
beer.
day?
Yeah,
oh no,
warm.
it's cold. Hell yeah.
It's warm beer.
Yeah. I didn't know if that was the cooler from yesterday.
It is.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Them AO coolers that Joe sold us on ain't all that bad. Alrighty, day 4 of the build, and we had a hang up where the beams didn't seem like they were lining up. We decided to plumb everything up, so we did it the simple way of chalk line, or it's just a string essentially, because there wasn't enough chalk, but we just held the string in place. Ran a plumb bob from the center down to the ground, and well, it's got a little bit of sway to it because we're rocking this thing, but we got it all squared up by tightening straps in this direction, because he was leaning over down here. It was probably a good inch or so, but yeah, we tightened up the straps and brought it back over this way to get it all plumbed up, so that hopefully everything fits in place now. All right, we just got the last rafter up on the end wall. Old Gale got her up there. So we got all the bolts in place. Started on one end, got those in, laid it down. We had to move the beams to dodge the mounting plates, but it's in. Getting the last bolts in right now. Look at that. He's got a spud wrench right through there. Be able to toss a bolt in. We're gonna boom it down just a little bit here. Maybe you're staring just at the sun. Maybe you can see what he's doing. Get the spud in one hole.
You want a bolt on this one too?
I want a bolt in all of them, yep.
Oh, okay. I'll try to get that.
You want to get paid on Friday?
Is that a thing?
All right, I think we're about ready to tighten up those guys, and yeah, we're just looking pretty good here. Alrighty, here we are on top of the world. We just put in the last bolt for the last purlin. So I will say the secondary, primary, all the steel is up.
All the Marys.
Now all we have to do is 4 man door frames, 4 garage door frames, and 8 window frames. And then the sheeting and the insulation and the roof. But we'll just enjoy this for a second. Completed objective number 1. Well, this is probably objective 20 of the shop build. Cat, hey Cat, we're done. Last bolt is in.
Yay!
What should we do now?
Go to Disney World!
Or
Hot wings.
get hot wings?
Hot wings!
All right.
Hot wings.
That's a wrap, dude. Drop them.
Drop them. Coming down.
Hey guys, it's your buddy Tim. Hey, I'm on top of my building today, and I'm about ready to bolt in the last purlin for the final time. Kind of set them all in place to get when I was erecting the building, and then I squared everything up and then tightened it down and was getting it all sorted out. But there was like one important detail that I felt wasn't like made clear in the instructions, and it's kind of something that probably help you out if you didn't know this. Maybe your instructions will have this or not, but at least you'll know it now because you're watching this. So I'll just get right to it. So the purlins and the girts are Z-shaped, right? So it kicks out on this side and then, you know, comes up, kicks out on this side. So this one's like a Z, right? And initially they all look the same, and you probably won't really realize that there's a difference. And it really does matter the orientation that you install them, and I'm going to show you what it is. Unless you pulled out a tape measure and looked at it, you might not ever notice this. So there happens to be a big side and a small side, and so like on mine the big side is 3 inches, and you can see I have the small one rested in it, and he's 2.5 inches. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're assembling your building, that the purlins and the girts that are Z-shaped are made like this to nest inside each other easily. And what you got to keep in mind is on that overlap that you know, you kind of want to do it consistently. So like I made the whole bay that you know, it's a braced bay. It's like bay 3, so it's like the first bay you build, and just put the big ones, the big side, all on the bottom, and then the 2 bays next to that will get little ones that drop into it. Okay, if that makes sense. So the little one, he nests inside the big one. If you do it the other way, where you're trying to nest the big side into the little side, that really doesn't work. You can get the big side into the big side and it kind of goes together, but it will leave you with a pretty big gap. So this is kind of like a natural gap that you would get, like I have it nested the proper way, but it doesn't always fit together. I'll just show you a trick to solve that. But just one thing to keep in mind is when you're putting your bays together, it's just easiest to make one whole bay big on the bottom, and the next bays like adjacent to it will be bottom, the little end on the bottom, and it will nest into this. Now, if you build your bays and you put your purlins in, you'll say you did bay 3 first because it's a brace bay, and if you went to put your purlins in on the second bay, right, then the ones on the first bay actually would sit underneath it because it's the big end. So you would have to like undo the one end of the purlins, lift it up, and set the other one in, if that makes sense to you. So the way that these are set up is they have an overlap and you put in multiple bolts. If that's the case, I would just throw in the 2 bolts that actually are mounted to your rafter. Just put those 2 in if you're just trying to hold everything in place while you're assembling it. And then whenever you get to putting in the purlins on the final bay, you just have less bolts to undo. Then the other thing to know is you're gonna have some overlap like this, like a gap where it just doesn't quite sit nice, and it's pretty simple to remedy that. So I just got a C-clamp here, and I clamp them down and get them flush, and then I will, you know, throw the 2 bolts and nuts through, tighten it down, and that just the clamping force will keep them however tight you get them. So it should look more like this one, where there's no real gap. You probably just see a shadow there. So little tip that they didn't have in my building manual: then get yourself a level that has a magnetic base, and then you can just check as you go. The holes and all the building stuff, it's all like slotted, so you have some play to move stuff up and down in case it doesn't exactly line up, because you know, nothing's perfect in the rural world where the concrete anchors are in the exact right spot and at the exact right height. So, you know, if they miss it by a 1/4 inch across the length of an 80-foot building, it is not the end of the world. You have some slots and stuff to help you get everything plumb and level. So just keep that in mind, that there is a lot of play. All right, well, that's it for right now. If this helps you out, hit the like button, because, you know, you should like something that helps you out. It's just a proper thing to do. All right, thanks, guys.